When we divide the square roots, just like when we multiply the square roots, I can just divide the numbers inside the square root. So instead of having two separate square roots, I can write this as under one square root and divide 672 divided by 6, and that will give me a whole number, which is square root of 112. And don't forget to always simplify your final answer. So I can break down square root of 112 by a perfect square root like 4, because 112 divided by 4 is 28. And now I can simplify the square root of 4, which is 2. And I can break down square root of 28 even more by another 4, because 4 times 7 is 28. So now again, I'm going to simplify square root of 4, which is 2 again. And I can't break down square root of 7 anymore. So my final answer is going to be multiply the numbers outside the square root. 2 times 2, which is 4. And then you bring down the square root of 7. So for the next problem, you will see that we have a little issue here, because again, I'm going to rewrite this as 1 square root, so 50 divided by 8. And when you type this in your calculator, 50 divided by 8, it's going to give you a decimal, and we don't want our answers or have a decimal inside the square root. So what we're going to do instead is to reduce this fraction. One number can go to 50 and 8, or you can use your calculator to help you out and convert it to fraction. So we know for this one, 50 divided by 8, 2 can go into 50 and 8. So I'm going to divide each number by 2. So therefore, 50 divided by 2 is 25, and then 8 divided by 2 is 4. And now again, I can rewrite this problem as square root of 25 divided by square root of 4. And square root of 25 is 5, and then we know square root of 4 is 2. So the answer to this problem is just 5 over 2. And you might encounter another issue, which I gave you the next example. So again, I'm going to rewrite this as under 1 square root, and let's do 50 divided by 12. And again, we have same issue earlier. 50 divided by 12 will give you a decimal. So let's just reduce the fraction, and again, 2 can go into 50 and 12. So therefore, this is the same thing as square root of 25 over 6. And I can rewrite this as square root of 25 over square root of 6. And we know what square root of 25 is. That's 5. And square root of 6, it's not a perfect square root, and we can't break down, so we have to leave as square root of 6. So in math, we cannot have a square root of any number in the denominator. So we have to get rid of it, and we call that rationalize it. So how do we remove the square root in the denominator? You're just going to multiply the top and the bottom of the fraction by whatever is at the bottom of the fraction, which is square root of 6. So multiply the top by square root of 6 and multiply the bottom by square root of 6. Now again, you cannot multiply 5 times 6 because 5 is not inside the square root. So therefore, 5 times square root of 6 is just 5 square root of 6. And then square root of 6 times square root of 6, since both 6 is under the square root, you can multiply. And 6 times 6 is square root of 36. And now again, my final answer is going to be 5 square root of 6. And we know what square root of 36 is. That's 6. Okay, so let's just do it one more time. This also shows you another issue that you might encounter. So again, for this problem, I'm going to write it as under 1 square root again, and I'm going to divide 25 over 15. So again, if you type this in your calculator, it will give you a decimal. So let's just reduce this fraction, and I know 5 can go to 25 and 15. So this is the same thing as the square root of 5 over 3. And again, I can rewrite this as square root of 5 over square root of 3. So this time you can see that the numerator can be simplified, and so is the denominator. However, again, you cannot have a square root in the denominator, so to remove it, just multiply top and bottom by the denominator, which is square root of 3, because our goal is to get rid of the square root. So now what we have is, now we should multiply 5 times 3 because both of them are inside the square root, and that will give us square root of 15 over square root of 3 times square root of 3 is square root of 9, and our last step is going to be square root of 15, and you can see square root of 9 is 3. So we have successfully removed the square root in the denominator.